Hello everybody and welcome to IEEE's AutoCAD series. I'll be your host for this mini-series that we're doing. Lucas Saber, that would be me. So, where I'm going to do my best to help you guys understand what AutoCAD is, this program, this mysterious program AutoCAD, and what it can be used for, where you can get it, how you can use it, all the great stuff. So, to start off with here, AutoCAD is a very versatile program that allows you to make technical drawings for all kinds of things, parts to manufacture, floor plans, sheets, all kinds of stuff that you may need to use it for. Um, it's basically like a drawing apparatus that you can draw things. That's effectively what it is, but you can use it for a lot of important things because you can make very specific drawing parts with it. It'll make more sense when we start getting into it. But it's a super useful tool. I know that our president, Alex Parody's used it. I've used it both for work, and it's, really helpful for a lot of reasons. For instance, the hardware store that I used to work at used to, it didn't used to actually have like a fire escape plan, which is a huge health hazard. So they actually asked me to make one for them. And I did that, and it was super useful to them. It cleared up like a health and safety problem of not having a fire escape route in place. So, in case you're curious, this is what that would look like. So, with AutoCAD, you can make very technical, very specific sheets that clearly communicate what you're trying to put on paper. Now, this may just look like a drawing or whatever, but it's actually like 95% accurate to the store. I measured the store; those all have specific lengths and specific locations. It's it's made to be very specific to that store. So you can do this kind of stuff with AutoCAD and clearly communicate what you want. We won't be getting into anything as involved as this, but the tools are all pretty much the same. It's pretty straightforward once we get past all the basics. What we're going to end up doing for this mini series is that I'm first going to show you guys how to use the basic tools and how to make actual parts, lines, circles, all kinds of stuff like that. And then in the second video, we're going to go ahead and show you how to do a bit more modification stuff, followed up by a drawing that I'm going to do on the computer, and you guys can see what kind of process you might go through for that. And I highly encourage you after this video, if you want to poke around in the software a bit, that'll be super useful to help learn it the most, because having someone teach you with this kind of software is helpful, but when you just kind of poke around in it on your own, that's where you're going to learn the most, truly. So without any further ado, let's close this here. Let's see here. So if you do AutoCAD free students, if you were to Google that, you would get this page of Google here. So we're going to end up clicking Autodesk Student Community. So go ahead and you click that, and you go to Get Products. And from there, you're going to go ahead and you're going to click Sign In. Whether you have an account or not, if you have one, a student account through Autodesk already from maybe another software, you can just sign in and go from there. But if you don't, these are the steps you need to take in order to make one that you can use for yourself in order to get the software. So you click Sign In, click Create Account. What you would do is you would enter the United States here, educational role as a student. The institution would be a university. It'll ask for your date of birth and all that. And then you'll click Next, and it'll ask you a couple more things, probably like your name and your email address. I don't know what else it might ask you, but stuff along the lines of, the information you give for setting up any account. So once you have your account set up, I'll just go back here to the educational software site. You would then go back here and you'll click Sign In, or it may prompt you to sign in afterwards, but either way you need to sign in. There's a verification involved. I think you have to give them your phone number when you log in, and it'll send you a phone code, and that'll allow you to verify that it's you signing in, something like that. Another important thing to note is when you are making your account, it will send you an email to your email address that will ask you to verify your account. So by phone or by email, it will ask you to verify in some capacity. What we're going to have here is all the softwares that you have accessible from Autodesk in order to do whatever it is you need to do. Now, there are a lot of them. They have a lot of really popular ones. We're just going to focus on AutoCAD though. So if you have a Mac, you'll do get product for AutoCAD, or get product for the AutoCAD for Mac. But since I have Windows, I'll be showing you more or less how to do it with Windows. You do get product. This will probably be the same for any of these, but what it's going to ask you is it's going to ask you for what platform. Now this one is a specific tab for Windows, so there's not really any options there, but this one's important, the next one. Each year they come out with a new edition of it where it's got maybe some optimized stuff, changes, where it may look nicer. Whatever it is they decide to do, they make changes every year. So I'll be doing AutoCAD 2020 because that's what I have on my computer right now, and that'll make it clear to kind of show you guys how the install process goes. But if you want, I would recommend doing AutoCAD 2021. Go ahead and click install and accept. It'll make an install file download onto your computer. You can go ahead and click that and it'll bring you through a setup process for AutoCAD. So it'll download here. Now, let's see, we'll just give it a minute and see if it speeds up a little bit here. Now you'll see on mine it says that it's already installed on here on my computer, which of course it is. But what you guys would end up doing is it would say something along the lines of, oh, this isn't installed, would you like to install this? Anything, I think there will be some checkboxes, but any checkboxes that'll be there, you can just leave them be. Anything that it's going to install should be all you really need. It'll ask for where you want to install it. Now the default will be something like program files in Windows C drive or whatever, but wherever you want to install is up to you. The default will always work though. And then you'll go ahead and click install. I'm going to close this out for now. But basically, it'll take you through the whole install process. And once you have it installed, it should create a shortcut on your desktop. And if not, it'll just be installed on your computer. And you can look it up through the Windows search bar. So we'll go ahead and we'll close this now. I'm going to search it here. And we'll open it up. It'll load up like this. May take longer or might be quicker for some others, but it'll just do its thing, load up the environment that you're going to work in. And you'll end up with a page that looks like this. Now this is going to be your start tab. It's kind of like an intro tab where you have a couple things very easily accessible to you, like recent documents you just worked on, super helpful by the way, stuff that you worked on recently, other stuff. Most of these, I'm not sure about these, I believe these were from me, my own products that I opened up, but these should be here for you already. Those are samples that they provide for you in case you want to look at different, some of the stuff that they've provided, if you want to just look around, see how it's done and everything, or just so you can see what kind of stuff you're able to make. Like this one I think is a floor plan. This one is this one's a sheet, a professional engineering sheet, and then this is an assembly of several different drawing parts that you can make, or blocks, or whatever it is. So, but to start off, I'm gonna get us into a new drawing here, and then I'll show you the actual tools that you're allowed to use. So we'll do start drawing. By default, it should say drawing 1. I'm gonna go ahead and save this onto my hard drive. And I already made one there, but I'm going to replace it and we'll have test drawing. So there we go. So the first thing that I'm going to show you guys is the basic layout of where things are on this window here. This whole thing, everything on your screen from AutoCAD right now is called your window. That's going to be where you find everything here. So you have a couple things. I'll just go through them quickly. If you need to, fortunately, since this is a video, you guys can pause it and go at your own pace. Try not to go too quick though. So we'll start up here. If you click down, this is called the application menu. This is where you'll find, new, open, save, import, export. Importing might be if you were to import PDFs into AutoCAD or export your drawing into a PDF or other drawing files, stuff like that. Publish, you can print. Print's useful because you can print your sheets in a specific way. But this is where you'll find most of your stuff. Most of the time you'll just go up here and you'll do new drawing. And that's another way that you can get a new drawing, not just from that start tab. So that's pretty self-explanatory there. The next thing is important, but it's not used too much, is up here. This is called the Quick Access Toolbar. This is where you're going to have some save information here, undo, print, stuff like that. Stuff that was already in here, but it's a bit quicker and easier to access. Now, one of the more important parts of all of this is up here. This is super important. This right here, this whole thing is called a ribbon, right? Obviously, it looks like a giant ribbon with a bunch of stuff on it. So I guess that's what they called it. But this is where you're going to find all the tools that you can use to edit drawings and all kinds of other stuff. You'll see there's a lot there and there's a lot to explore. We'll go through them as best we can through these videos, but that's where you'll find them. Feel free to explore them. There's going to be several ribbons actually, because what we'll have all these little drop downs: home, insert, annotate, parametric. I believe that they're called tabs or something of that like. But basically on each of those you're going to have your ribbon where you're going to have your individual tools specified by that specific title. So home is where you're going to find all the basic stuff you're going to use. You're going to be in here like 80% of the time. You may have insert for a couple things. Annotate's a big one because you can make text, you can make dimensions and leaders and other stuff. You don't really use these other ones too much up here, but if you need the tools, they're there for you. So, like I mentioned before, it should have you sign in. If you don't sign in, there's this little drop down up here that will help you sign in, and that kind of just like links AutoCAD to your online account that you have. So I'm already signed in, but if you were to click this, it would say sign in if you're not already signed in. From here, we've got a couple more things that we can talk about. Well, let's start up here. This thing right here is called the view cube. Now, that might sound real wild, but basically what it is you have a 3D space that we're allowed to operate in here, and this allows you to easily navigate it. Now, like almost 99% of the time with AutoCAD, you're going to just be working in a 2D space on the XY axis, but sometimes you can use its 3D capabilities if necessary. So I'll show you that here. You can click and drag. You can take a look at the 3D space that's available to you. If you want, you can click these little highlighted regions and it'll move things around for you. But for now, we're just going to go to the top view, and that'll take us to our 2D XY axis view. What is super helpful though is if you need it, you have these little rotate tools up here that'll allow you to just rotate your entire 2D plane 90 degrees at a time, which is super helpful actually. Now, there are a couple other tools you can use. There's this full navigation wheel, which has a lot of different options on it. You can see there's orbit. That's how you can move around in that 3D space. Pan is how you do the same thing in 2D space. How I'm doing it with the center click on my mouse, but that is how you can just drag the area around and navigate that personally. Zoom, there's if you were to click zoom, you can click and drag your cursor to zoom. I just use my cursor wheel. And you can use a couple other things on here. You don't use too much on here, but it's useful to know. Yeah, this is the pan tool, so you can click that, and that's one of the ways you can do that. This right here would be zoom extents. Orbit here can allow you to pivot in that 3D space. I'll go back, click escape here and go back to top and go back to 2D space. So there are a couple more things that I want to show you guys before we actually get into the tools themselves. So we have down here layout tabs, which are helpful. You can go to these different layouts, which can be really helpful. You can do them on different axes and everything, but they can basically just get a very rudimentary layout of your drawing on paper before doing any kind of heavy drawing sheets or anything like that. Now, two more things. We've got right down here is the command line bar, or command bar, command line palette. Could be called multiple things, really. But you see there are all these tools up here, right? Well, fortunately, if you can actually type these in, so like line is up there. If I typed in line, I'll click that and it'll actually bring up some suggestions of what I might be talking about. So if I were to click enter, then I have the line tool right at my fingertips. So if you like keyboard shortcuts and all kinds of stuff, that's really helpful because I don't have any tool selected right now, but if I were to start typing line, it'll do the same thing. It'll be like a shortcut to the command line bar. Very helpful. Okay, so the next thing, and the last thing I want to show you really before we really get into the actual tools themselves is this, which is like almost the second most important thing that you could deal with AutoCAD. Are the snaps. These are called snaps right down here. That would be in the status bar. This whole thing's called the status bar down here, but these things are called snaps, and that is super important because one of the major things that makes this different from something like MS Paint, obviously there's a lot of differences, but one of the biggest things is you can make very specific drawings, very specific circles, lines with degrees and radii and lengths and certain dimensions. And what this is super helpful for is you can have a lot of different snaps that allow you to have your cursor kind of stick to a certain location within a certain like region. It'll stick there, which makes you which gives you this really awesome ability to just clip these lines and other stuff to specific parts. The whole thing about AutoCAD is you can make very specific drawings, and this is another tool that's really widely used. So I'll show you what these are. The first one here is going to be called your ortho mode. What that'll do is I'll show you with a line here, right? It'll allow you to make 90-degree measurements. You can make lines and other stuff with respect to 90 degrees. The next one here is called polar tracking. Now, what that'll do is it'll help you snap to certain angles. The way that the cursors and everything work in AutoCAD is based on a polar coordinate system and a Cartesian coordinate system. So when you're making lines and stuff, you'll have lengths and angles, which are your biggest things that you need to be concerned about. Because realistically, you're not going to have a line and you're not going to click in one spot and want to know the exact coordinates of where you're going. You want to know like an angle of reference and a length. So you can have these snaps tracked to different degrees, different sets of these. So if you had 90, 180, 270, and you were to do a line, you'll see I can still freely rotate it, but you'll see that even if I move my mouse to the left and right of that line, that green suggestion line, it'll still want to just snap there. So you can see I move it and it snaps. It snaps into place where it's suggesting I can go. The angle, as you can see at the top of that arc, is 180, and there's a length right there. And it tells you the polar coordinates as well. So same difference. What's super helpful is you can use 45 degrees, 30 degrees. These other ones aren't super widely used. But if you want to do 45 degrees, then you can snap to 45 degrees and increments of 45. Same thing for increments of 30. So there's 30 degrees and 60 degrees and 90 degrees. So I'll keep that set to here for now. But you can have these snaps for your lines and all your other stuff. It's really helpful in order to have some point of reference on this arbitrary sheet that you're working on. So the next thing I'm going to show you guys, which is the second most important thing to that probably, is your snaps. So you always want to keep this on. This shows your snapping reference lines, which imply that you'll have more of those little green dotted lines that'll help you to snap to certain parts of your drawing. This will all make so much more sense when we actually get into a drawing and you see it in use. But the idea with the snaps is that they help guide your cursor to a specific part of the screen. So if you were to click this, there's so many snaps that you can enable and disable. Just so it's really easy, I'll go to Object, Snap Settings, and it'll pull this window up. It'll show you snap and grid, polar tracking, 3D object snap. That's going to be all the same other stuff that's down here. It's basically like a flyout for all that. But basically, you can have all these different ones, right? So you can have for snaps for endpoints of lines, midpoints of lines, center points of circles, geometric centers for other things, certain nodes that you might define, quadrants of a circle perhaps, so like 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180, intersections of lines, extensions of lines, intersections of lines and other solid bodies. Perpendicular would be like if you have some kind of line or something, it can help you find an angle that's perpendicular to that specifically. Tangent, which is tangent to circular or curved objects. Apparent intersections and parallel. Personally, I like to leave these all on at once because as you're doing this, it's super helpful. But if you have a certain spot in your drawing that's really constricted with a lot of different snaps, it's really helpful sometimes to turn some of these off and only leave the ones on that you need so you can make sure you're getting the correct specific input for your drawing.